Banks give Black-owned businesses advantage on finance terms. Programs spring from multi-billion-dollar commitments made after Matter Lives Black protests this year. And this appears to be from the Wall Street Journal. But if it doesn't comport well enough for the folks at YouTube or CNN with the anti-white narrative, then please just disregard the Wall Street Journal and take whatever line that they want. But always get your information from more than one source. Make sure your primary source is ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, MSNBC. Who are some of the others? PBS. Make sure the BBC. Make sure just to get it from all of these sources, primary sources for you all. The biggest banks in the U.S. And again, remember, these are the people in the anti-white narrative that are fighting the man. This white-dominated, for white interests, for white well-being world in which we live, the Western civilization in which we live. These companies, all of them, international companies, the biggest, giving ungodly sums of money to these anti-white entities. The biggest banks in the U.S. will give Black-owned businesses advantageous terms on a crucial type of financing that companies use to manage their cash flow, a novel effort to narrow the wealth gap between white and non-white communities. Isn't that special? Isn't that special? As they used to say on that wretched Saturday Night Live, you had there was a skit called like Church Chat or Church Lady. Isn't that special? You know, I remember saying back in junior high school, we're talking about Crucible earlier. I remember saying, and I was on the phone with somebody a couple days ago, yelling at how I have been saying whatever it was that since junior high school, and it's come, what I said would happen is come to fruition all the way back then. And yet you still have adults pushing back. Unbelievable. But you know, they will be able to use, you do realize, anti-whites will be able to use this excuse of a wealth gap forever, because they'll be able to lie. But if you just follow it to its logical conclusion, they'll be able to say that until every single Black person is as wealthy as the wealthiest white people. It's not measured by you, a guy who gets up before the sun comes up and heads to your construction job, where they treat you like trash, and you have a terrible healthcare insurance through these people that absolutely fleeces you so that you can have a substandard healthcare. No, it's not you that, no, it's, logical conclusion is the wealthiest of white people. So, and mind you, 12% of the US population is this group of people. I guess there's some 12 to 13%, some bit of question about which of the above 12% is does the actual Black community consider Black, and whatever it is. It's not a massive percent of the population, but they all need to be in Jaguars as far as I'm concerned. They all need to be in Lamborghinis and the nicest cars. Banks made multi-billion-dollar commitments to expand lending to Black consumers and businesses after the wave of protests throughout the U.S. sparked by the, it says here, killing of an individual. I'm going to say the death of an individual. I'll translate that for you. The death of an individual. The targeted lending is meant, the targeted lending. So note how these anti-whites at Wall Street Journal are not talking at all about how this is discriminatory to white people. It's discriminatory for every race other than Black, of course, but the burden is going to fall on the white race. We are the ones who the regime never talk about being discriminated against. We are the ones who are endlessly victimized, and there's never a word about it, not even a modicum of word about it. And this is setting up the housing crisis all over again. And there are some who say, this channel is not going to say it because we want to stay where folks can hear us. But there are some who say that the cause for the housing collapse and what was a depression, and history will write it justly, global, is that across the United States, banks were being cajoled and or sued to lend money to people who did not have the proper ability for various reasons, didn't have the assets, didn't have the work record, had a record of going in and out of prison or whatever it might be, to be able to pay back the loans. So these banks ended up making loans to all of these people that they know would go belly up. They knew would go belly up. And the bank, in order to stay in business, needed to bundle those. So it's not predatory lending. I got into an argument with one of these rich white women who want to just villainy signal all day long because she can have everything she has. They just keep moving further and further out into bigger and bigger castles. And so she just wants to, oh, that's just predatory lending. No, it isn't, you idiot. No, you wench, you silly woman. No, it's not. It is only predatory lending when the person who borrowed the money can pay back and you have set the payments and the overall cost at something far more than is fair. That's predatory lending. Twit. You know, if you can do nothing other than use your husband's money to pick out the most expensive and luxurious tiles and cabinetry and travertine and everything else, if that's all you can do with your time, then just do that and zip it, honey, when it comes to everything else, because you have no idea what predatory lending is. The banks weren't preying on these people. The banks were forced to give money to these people that they knew would not be able to pay it back, according to some, not according to this channel. Check elsewhere. And then the banks, in order to not go out of business when all of these things went belly up, when they became defunct, they bundled these things up and then, as unscrupulous bastards, turned around to the investment community all around the world, who are many middle class and upper middle class white people who have worked for their money. They weren't just giving it. They worked for their money. And they said, hey, great investments here. Think of all the money you're going to make. And these people bought it all up. And then when it went belly up, they lost everything. That's what's happening here. It looks like setting up all over again. Black consumers expanded to lending to black consumers and businesses after black consumers and businesses. Wow, well, more to it than just the headline. Banks made multi-billion-dollar commitments to expand lending to black consumers and businesses after the wave of protests throughout the U.S. The targeted lending is meant to correct decades of discrimination. Listen to how they, anti-whites, frame all of this filth, this discrimination, this victimization of the white race. Well, see, you're supposed to be victimized, white man and white woman, white baby. You're supposed to be victimized because these other people, they're so oppressed. And if you stay in the anti-white narrative, they're always oppressed. It never ends. You can't make amends for a crime you didn't commit. Go to the 9 words if you need to. Discrimination in lending, whereby banks denied loans to black borrowers or steered them toward products with higher interest rates and other terms many couldn't afford. Well, bravo, Sierra, based on race. Bravo, especially in the anti-white atmosphere we live in. Not a single bank anywhere was discriminating. Of course, if the anti-white tells you the opposite, then that's true. But they couldn't. They simply could not. They would think a lender would think it immoral to do so, to discriminate on the basis of race. They would be subject to incredible criminal charges for doing so. No, if you want to see discrimination based on race, be a white guy with a working class job and having lived a working class life, and then go out into the world, go to the bank and say, hey, I'd like some money just to even build up my credit, because I did that years ago. I wanted to take my credit from good to make it excellent, all the way up to at the highest numbers that it could be. I went to the bank and I said, I would like a loan for the purpose of improving my credit. And guess what? They wouldn't do it. And I said, are you kidding me? I have enough money in my account to cover the loan. Why don't we do this? we put a stop that on my savings account that I can't remove the amount of the loan, so that you have your money no matter what. You cannot lose it. And they went back and they talked to the lender again. Nope, not going to do it. That's discrimination. What happens here, and when they say, just like a credit card, when they tell the filthy rich people, hey, you're going to have no interest, or this really low interest. The reason why is because the lender is going to make a shit ton of money off that tiny number, off that tiny percentage. Dumb at the bottom of the IQ ladder, and everybody out there who don't understand this. Lenders compete for that ton of money that they're going to make off rich people by shrinking the interest to as small as they can. They don't give them a small interest rate and you a big one because they don't like you because you're non-white at this end. Because first of all, you can look at the wealthy people and they're not all white. They're definitely not all white. And they all get that tiny interest rate. The lenders, the credit cards, they all get that tiny. And the reason why is because they know these people. They're going to break that card out and they're going to say, oh yeah, I'll give $30,000 on this card. I'll give $80,000 on this card. So that tiny interest rate is a ton of money for the lender. When you show up and you have a record of not paying your bills, or you have no money to make any money off of you, and remember, this is not a right for them to give you money. It's a business deal. They want to make money off of you, and they're not sure that you're going to give money back. They're selling you money. God dang, this is so idiotic. So they give you a jacked up percentage to try to make money off of you because they know your expenses are going to be this big. And then, of course, an anti-white is going to use it as an excuse, and they'll make up this lie. As part of the promise, Citigroup Incorporated, J.P. Morgan, Chase and Company, and Bank of America say they will lower charges to Black and other minority-owned companies, in supply chain finance programs. Companies use supply chain finance to manage short-term spending needs, similar to the way a consumer might use a credit card. So there you have it. In the paragraph before, we say to consumers and businesses. So the author, Steinberg, of this piece for the Wall Street Journal revealed that, well, it's not just for businesses. It is for consumers and businesses. And then in the very next paragraph reveals that it's not just Black people, it's all non-white people. There's only one group being discriminated against, and it's Western kind. In a typical supply chain finance deal, it looks like maybe it'll just go into the nuts and bolts of describing it to the reader. No need to go any further with that. So you understand right there. These mega banks, international mega banks, have set aside many billions of dollars to give cheap to, who knows, maybe free, I don't know, look into it, money, so no interest, who knows, to non-white consumers and businesses for their spending needs, and the only group being discriminated against is Western kind. What do we talk about relative to this story when we talk to our friends, family, and strangers? The discrimination against us. We are denied access to this program. We are going to suffer the consequences. I didn't even get a chance to mention it earlier. It just comes back to me now, and it's a good thing that it does. I'm going to have to turn the AC on in a minute. Because with the Farmers Act, the Black Farmers Act, and with this for all non-whites, they're going to be giving money away to these people to do what? To conduct business. What will that do to the white business owners? What will that do to the employees of all races? But nobody's going to care about us but us, and you know that. What about all those white employees that work for those white business owners? How are they going to compete with non-white owned businesses, ranches, farms, and what every other business here? This is already happening from these major banks. How are they going to compete when these businesses are getting dollars, free dollars, or almost free dollars from these banks, these private institutions, and the federal government. They won't be able to compete against that. So they will go out of business. And as they go out of business, your selection diminishes and prices go up. Demand, supply will go down, prices will go up, quality will go down. This is what they're doing. These are the ways that it's going to harm Western kind. How many white business owners are going to go out of business now? There's no way in hell they'll be able to compete with this. No way in hell.